conversion. So the first thing we're going to talk about here is, and I've just forgotten what these are called. 1 inch equals, I can't believe I forgot the name for this, 2.54 centimeters. Yeah, this is a conversion factor, right? So 1 inch equals 2.54 centimeters. I'm pretty sure there's another name for them, and I will tell you as soon as I think of it. So we know that 1 inch, if I were to take a ruler, is the same thing as 2.54 centimeters. If I were to measure this inch, it's the same as a little more than 2.5 of the centimeters. Okay. And this conversion factor tells us how to convert both from inches to centimeters and centimeters to inches. Okay. So that's one of them. Here's another one. This is one you probably know. 3 feet equals 1 what? Yard. I'm going to abbreviate yard YD. Okay. And here's another one you probably know. 100 centimeters equals 1 meter. Okay. But how do we actually use these? Right? It's really easy if I ask you, convert 1 yard into feet. You say, oh, well, 1 yard equals 3 feet. Or if I say, convert 2.54 centimeters into inches, that's fairly easy. But what if we start having to convert more complicated numbers? And so when we have to convert something that's not exactly the conversion factor, we use something called a unit multiplier. And for every conversion factor, for any one of these equals, these equations, I have 2 unit multipliers. The first one, for inches and centimeters, would look like this. 1 inch over 2.54 centimeters. Now this is a fraction. What is the value of this fraction? 1 inch divided by 2.54 centimeters. If we think about it, the top is equal to the bottom. What is the value of a fraction where the top, the numerator, is equal to the denominator, the bottom? What is the value of this fraction?
1.
1, yeah. So what is the value of this fraction? The top equals the bottom, so the value is 1. And that's why we call them unit multipliers, right? I didn't leave myself enough space here, but these are going to be our unit multipliers. The word unit means 1, essentially. Okay. So the other unit multiplier for this conversion factor is 2.54 centimeters over 1 inch. And understanding this process, how do I make a conversion factor into a unit multiplier? That's the basis for unit conversion, or in science we would call this dimensional analysis. In math we usually call it unit conversion. Alright. Someone want to guess what one of the unit multipliers for this conversion factor is? Yeah.
3 feet over 1 yard.
3 feet over 1 yard. And what does this equal, this fraction? It equals 1. Or, what's our other unit multiplier? We have a second unit multiplier. Yeah.
1 yard over 3 feet.
1 yard over 3 feet. Very good. And then if we look here, 100 centimeters equals 1 meter. We could make either 100 centimeters over 1 meter or 1 meter over 100 centimeters. So I'm just taking my conversion factor. I'm putting 1/2 of it in the numerator, the other half of it in the denominator to make a fraction that equals 1. And I can do that in two ways. I can either put this half in the numerator, or I can put this half in the denominator. And then I put this half in the other one. This is how we get from a conversion factor to a unit multiplier. Now, how do we use unit multipliers? This is sort of the tricky part. I mean, I think once you understand the approach to this, it's not really that tricky. But let's do an example. Let's say I had 5 inches, and someone said, convert this into centimeters. Okay. Convert 5 inches to centimeters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend that 5 inches is a fraction itself. And for some of you it might help if you say 5 inches over 1. Remember, I can put anything over 1, it doesn't change it. 8 over 1 is 8. 5 inches over 1 is still 5 inches. And then I'm going to multiply times one of these two conversion factors. The way I decide which conversion factor to multiply by is I'm going to have, I'm going to think about inches in the top needs to cancel with inches in the bottom. And then I want to be left with centimeters. So which of these conversion factors, or unit multipliers, would set up a multiplication so that inches in the top cancels with inches in the bottom? In this case, this unit multiplier has inches in the bottom. So if I multiply by 2.54 centimeters over 1 inch, I'm going to get my answer. And let's see why that happens. So the key to this, the reason this is part of algebra is because units behave like variables, right? So think about a proportion that said something like 5, or not a proportion, but a fraction, 5x times 2.54y divided by 1x. If we saw x over x, we would cancel those out. Right? We would cross those out. Inches is going to work the same way. So when I have inches up top, that's going to cancel with inches down bottom. Then I find the unit that's left. So inches canceled with inches. All I have left is centimeters up top. So in my answer, I'm going to have centimeters. So now I've dealt with my units. I like dealing with the units first, but you can do that last if you want to. The other pieces I have to deal with the numbers. So here I have 5 divided by 1 times 2.54 divided by 1. And this is why I said to bring your calculators today. Yeah. So we should have 12.7 centimeters. Okay, and how did we get that? We took 5 times 2.54 divided by 1, which we don't really actually have to type divided by 1 in because we know it's not going to change the result. So all I did was 5 times 2.54 centimeters. And that gives me 12.7 centimeters. And we want to think about this. Okay, before we box our answer, we want to say, okay, they asked me to convert 5 inches to centimeters. First question, did I do that? Is my answer in centimeters? Yeah. Yes. Second question, does this make sense? Think about a ruler, think about 5 inches. Is that possibly 12.7 centimeters? And if you look at a ruler, it certainly seems like 5 inches, right, which is this long, could be about 12.7 centimeters, which is this long. So that makes sense. If I said 5 inches equals 127 centimeters, I would probably be thinking to myself, 5 inches doesn't seem quite that long. And I would go back and check my work. Alright, let's do another example. Let's say I had 127 feet, and someone told me to convert that into yards. Okay, first step. Pretend this is a fraction. If that helps you. This is not really necessary, but if it helps you, I would recommend that you do this. Second step. Multiply by one of these two unit multipliers. Either 3 feet over 1 yard or 1 yard over 3 feet. I know that I want to cancel feet, and feet is in the top. So I'm going to pick the unit multiplier that has feet down bottom. I'm going to pick this one. So I multiply this times 1 yard over 3 feet. Feet up top, just like it were a variable, cancels with feet down bottom. Yards is left. Now I have 127 times 1 divided by 3. So when I'm doing my numbers, I pretend that these fractions say divided by. Right? So I have 127 times 1, which is still 127, divided by 3. 127 divided by 3. So that's going to be 42.3333333. You can write it like this. Yards. Okay, first of all, they asked me to convert feet to yards. Did I successfully get yards? Yes. Could 127 feet really be about 40 yards? Yeah, that makes sense. So I know there's 3 yards to a foot, so something like that would make sense. Okay, one more example before we generalize this process. Let's say someone said convert 14 centimeters to meters. Alright, first step. I'm going to write out 14 centimeters and I'm going to make it a fraction. Second step. Multiply times one of these two unit multipliers. I need to choose the one that has centimeters in the bottom. So I'm going to choose this one. So I'm going to multiply by 1 meter over 100 centimeters. Third step, cancel my units. Centimeters cancel because 1 centimeter is in the bottom and 1 is in the top. Meters are left, so my answer I know will be in meters. Fourth and final step, I'm going to look at all my numbers. 14 times 1 divided by 1 divided by 100. Let's see what I get. 14 times 1 is just 14. Divided by 1 is still 14. Divided by 100. Because the 100 is below this big fraction. And every fraction is a division problem. 14 divided by 100 is 0.14 meters. Does that make sense? Is 14 centimeters really less than a meter? Yeah. Right? Here's a meter. Here's 14 centimeters. So yeah, it's less than. Alright, hopefully you're writing all of these examples in your notes. Every single example in your notes. And now I definitely want you to write these steps. I'm going to write out the steps in words just because I think for some people it's really helpful to have something in your notes where you can go back and say, okay, step 1, I'm going to do this. Step 2, I'm going to do this. So step 1 is write the number you are converting as a fraction. So here, convert 14 centimeters to meters. I wrote 14 centimeters over 1. That was step 1. Okay? Step 1. Step 2. Multiply by the unit multiplier that has your unit in its denominator. My unit was centimeters, and so the unit multiplier that had the unit in the denominator was 1 meter over 100 centimeters. I will say this step will work for now. There are times when you actually want to cancel something out of your denominator. So just as kind of an aside, if I said convert 15 miles per hour to meters per second, in order to cancel the hours, you would have to say, there is 1 hour in 3,600 seconds. So sometimes you actually have to convert by putting your unit in the top. For now, and on your homework, they're all going to be going into the bottom. Okay? So for now, this step, you can follow this exactly. Multiply by the unit multiplier, this, that has your unit in its denominator. So my unit was centimeters. This has centimeters in the denominator, so they'll cancel off. 3, I'm just going to say deal with your units. So cancel, etc. So here we canceled centimeters, right? We crossed them off, and then we had meters left, so I wrote meters. So this is step 2, and this was step 3. Right? And then step 4, deal with the numbers. So I took 14 times 1, divided by 100, divided by 1, and I got 0.14. Right, so this is step 4. But this is part of step 3. I want to also point out step 2 implies that you know what your unit multipliers are, right? So it would be really hard to do a conversion problem like this if you didn't have the conversion factor and the unit multipliers. So I want to start off by just practicing that a little bit. Do you guys have questions about the steps that I just laid out, or this process? So, oh shoot, I left my So let's say someone gives you 1 liter equals 1,000 milliliters. What are your 2 unit multipliers for that? Raise your hand. Yeah.
1 liter over 1,000 milliliters, or 1,000 milliliters over.
Very nice.
Okay.
Does everyone agree with that? If someone said, convert 5 liters to milliliters, which one of these would I use? So I'm starting with 5 liters. I want to cancel my liters. Yeah, so this unit multiplier will cancel the liters. And it will leave me with milliliters. Sometimes people write out like what I want over what I've got. Has sort of a ring to it. What I want over what I've got. What I want is milliliters, that's in the top. What I've got is liters, that's in the bottom. Okay, so if this helps you, write it down. What I want over what I've got. Okay, how about someone tells us that 2.2 pounds equals 1 kilogram. What are my 2 unit multipliers for this? 2 unit multipliers, yeah.
2.2 pounds, LBS over 1 kilogram.
Yeah. Do you guys all recognize LBS is the abbreviation for pounds? Yeah. If you know Spanish, it's a little easier to remember because libra is pound, and it sounds a lot like L. Well, it has an L and a B in it, right? And I think it probably actually comes from Latin, but I don't know what it is in Latin. So LBS, 2.2 pounds over 1 kilogram, and then what was the other one?
1 kilogram over 2.2 pounds.
Okay, now someone says convert 72 LBS to kilograms. 72 pounds to kilograms, which one of these do we want to use? Yeah, because this one has kilograms up top, and that's what I want to end up with. Okay? Let's do one more practice like this. And I left my sheet in the other room, so I'm remembering this. But I believe 1.6 kilometers equals 1 mile. I think that's right. And someone says convert 125 kilometers to miles. Can you look at this and just tell me the conversion, the unit multiplier that we need to know? Yeah, it's just 1 mile over 1.6 kilometers. What I want over what I've got. Okay. So on your homework, I'll give you a whole bunch of conversion factors. I'm not going to expect you to memorize these. Although, some of you probably already have memorized some of them, right? Like 100 centimeters is 1 meter. A lot of you probably have memorized that. Anyway, for the purposes of this, I will not ask you to memorize these. I will always give you the conversion factors. So your job is turn that into a unit multiplier, figure out which unit multiplier to use, and then multiply. Questions? The other thing I will say is if you get a whole bunch of decimals in your answer, so like your calculator's spewing out 10 decimals, for now, you can just write however many decimals in your answer as you had in your conversion factor. So if your conversion factor was 2.54 centimeters, you would write your answer with 2 decimals. If your conversion factor was 1.6, right, this equals 1 inch. 1.6 kilometers equals a mile. You could write your answer with 1 decimal because we have one number to the right of decimal. Okay? So you can round. Just pay attention to how much information they give you in your conversion factor and give the same information back in your answer. All right.